Yeah. So, anyways, the problem with skill development is number one, it costs a lot of money. So, maybe that's not a problem. But number two is, do you actually know what you're getting out of it? And that's the biggest thing for me. Is I said this a couple weeks ago. Like someone was telling me how they're going to this power skater. They've been going there for a long time, and da 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 da. It's great. You got to see it. And I'm like, I can't tell. In fact, there's some things I could fix there real quick. Not or it could give you some things to improve on because one of it was quickness. I said there's the explosiveness or the getting on the balls of your feet for the quick strides is not there. Now it could be a function of being young, but like the skating in general was not something that you would say this kid's been with an elite power skating coach for 2 years, right? So, but again, whatever you think is good for your kid, that's fine. But that's a lot of money for a lot of nothing, in my opinion, right? The main thing that I would say with a lot of the skill stuff is that there's like too many kids and not enough instruction. But now you almost can't blame the instructor because if you're putting on 25, like in our camps, we explain that basically if there's 20 to 30 kids out there, you can't expect a private lesson, right? So we do drills that are generic, but we make sure we have enough instructors that there's the teaching points and the points where they're learning something and having some deficiencies taken care of, and the why is always explained. And then so the other thing is on the instruction is that if you're not getting those teaching points, the feedback, the you've done that right, or no, you need to fix this, then I'm not sure why you would pay for it because, like we've said this a million times, you can just put out if it's just a bunch of pilots, you can just do it yourself.
Yeah, if it's
And
just
you can save
reps,
yourself
yeah,
a lot of money,
yeah, yeah.
right? Because and I'm going to be honest again, I've seen so many instructors, some that have worked for us, some that are that I've watched things. It's like all it is you went to YouTube and you took someone else's drills. I've seen people that take my stuff, which I encourage, take my stuff and run it. It's because the drills are the drills. The instruction is a whole different ballgame, right? And I know that most guys don't do a lot of the teaching, but when people do, it's a huge. I love to see it. So one time I was teaching in Detroit. I was working with there's Dylan Larkin, Ryan Kressler, JT Comfer, what's his Ian Cole, a bunch of college guys
Was
and
it Andrew
stuff.
Cobb there? Was he another
Andrew
one?
Kopp,
Yeah.
yeah, he was. So they were there, and I was doing some shooting stuff, and the current coach for the University of Michigan, Brandon Naurato, was watching, and he came up to me after. And he goes, "Andy," he goes, "I am so glad to see a guy teaching shooting the proper way." He goes, "I see everybody." So he went through like what I was doing. He goes, "Oh yeah," I said, "I know. No, most people don't teach it." He goes, "No, they just go through the motions." So he was like, he was happy to see someone teach the right thing, and I get the same way when I see someone go, "Yeah, that's a good program." Because I love to tell a kid, "Yeah, if you go there, you're getting the good stuff." But most of the time, you say you go there, you get a lot of kids on the ice, and someone's making some money. So it's not really.
Well, and I think the other thing about that is because we run camps where it's volume, like there's a lot of kids,
100%.
so it's like as long as you know what it is going into it, then fair enough. But it's when it's presented as something else, like you're getting, because everyone uses the what are the like the buzz terms, like the game transferable elite skills, like master skating, master shoot like Connor Bedard, like this kind of stuff, and it's normally just a bunch of fluff. So it's always a what is it saying that you're supposed to get out of this camp or out of this session or out of this training, and that's where it comes in because I don't want to like totally carve the trainers either
No,
because it's like at depending on how it's set up, as long as the goals are
yes,
clear, right?
yeah. But my point to this whole thing, and I'm gonna ask a question to us. But my point to this whole thing is, do you from watching parents and kids, it's like there's the social pressure of this kid's doing this. This dad said this is good, and I want to keep up with the Joneses, or if I don't get on the ice and get instruction, it's going to be ruin my hockey. It's not true. And then also look at instructors. And I'm not saying you. Yeah, I am saying this. A lot of instructors haven't played at a very high level. So like if your instructor is playing at relatively the same level you did, it's like unless they're very good at teaching and they went on a different tangent, right, with hockey. So anyways, my thing is is it necessary? Number one, is skill development or skill coaches necessary? And the answer would be, well, first of all, it's up to you. Like mom and dad, some people, you're never going to change their mind anyways. But is it necessary? No, not necessary. Can it be helpful? Certainly can, in the right hands, in the right environment. And sometimes you want to do it just for extra skates. And if you know that going in, if you know, like you said, if you know what you're getting going in, and you just go in there to get extra ice and stuff like that, that's one thing. But is it absolutely necessary? No.
Yeah. The other thing I want to touch too is how much of it
That's my
is
next question.
Is that what you're gonna say?
I'm not an idiot,
Hey
man.
man, we're just on
How
the
often,
same
right?
track
So
here.
yeah, so that's the question is it necessary? If it is, how often? If it's not, then I guess how often is not really a question, but you have to do something, I would think. So how often? Well, that's, again, it's up to you. I can tell people. So my suggestion to people has always been this: if you have a good skills session, or a good private lesson or a small group session once a week, that should be more than plenty. And here's why: because, and think about it. Okay, so if you play travel hockey or whatever hockey, and you play on the weekends mostly. Okay, so you're on the ice 1 to 3 times a week, right? It might be a tournament, whatever. During the week, you're going to have 2 practices. So that's 3, 4, 5 times a week already. If you need to go on the ice more than that, it should be for a real specific reason. It shouldn't be just a bag skate. It shouldn't be just a whole bunch of reps. So let's just say, and now if I'm specific about my skill development, like I need my hands are shit, so I need stick handling. Okay, so if I can take in the middle of the week or somewhere that it makes sense, I guess it doesn't matter. It depends on availability, but ideally it'd be in the middle of your practice and 2 practices, and so that you can apply it. What would happen is you'd be able to play on the weekends, go to a practice, and then one day during the week I could work on my hands with a skills coach or a guy that could actually break things down. Doesn't have to be like super intense, but it could be just like purposeful. And then I could take that skill and apply it to my next practice and game. So I believe there's only so much room in the brain to absorb and
100%.
yeah, and to have a desire to learn more and to be hungry to learn and to hungry to give the effort, especially when it comes to skill development. The effort is not just physically, your brain has to be engaged, and if your brain's not engaged, then it's almost like a wasted lesson, because you're just doing reps of something. So using the brain power when you're doing the skill development actually takes a lot of energy, and it's taxing. So I would say if you're doing it that way, that's what I would say how often it should be. If you missed one week out of the 52, it's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you did 2 once in a while, it's fine. But I would say the optimal amount would be once a week of instruction. I'm not talking about practicing on your own, of instruction. So anybody that's come to me during the season, especially, they said, we want to work on our shooting, whatever it is. I would say once a week, so that you can dial in mentally and work whatever we're doing to a T, and then apply it. And then in that session, you have to know, this is why it's so important to only have one, right? Number one, find deficiencies. Number two, fix the deficiencies. Number three, or one through, maybe it's number one, is why you're doing something and doing it correctly. So it's like, it's not just shooting a whole bunch of pucks or doing a bunch of stick handling. There's purposeful training, and that's where you get results.
Yeah, I want to hammer home the how often point too, because that's the biggest thing that I notice is people think it needs to be every day, all day, no breaks, or 5 times a week or 4 times a week or whatever. And it doesn't have to be that. So one of the analogies that I like using is, I'll go back to a school example. If you have a big exam coming up, I remember being in university and sometimes you'd have a gap between exams. So it'd be like you'd have one on Tuesday and then you'd have another one on Sunday. So that means I have, in theory, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday to study for my Sunday exam. Okay. If I study as hard as I can all 4 of those days, by the time it's Friday afternoon, I'm done, man. I'm done. My brain is toast. So you need to have some time where you can sit with the information that you were supposed to learn, let it actually digest it, let it sink in, and then you come back at it with a fresh mind the next day or 2 days later or whatever. And that's actually how you learn things. It's not constant hammering the skill. And people can probably relate to that too, where you're working on a problem and it's so frustrating. It's 11:30 at night and you finally just say, F it, I'm going to bed. And then you wake up, go get it after it again, and all of a sudden it's easy and you solve it in 5 minutes. You know, just because you're hammering on the same thing, you get tired of doing the same thing. And like you said, it turns into just another skate.
It doesn't have to be every day.
Right. Yeah. And that's
Instruction.
right. Instruction.
But if you, so that was my next point is you can do it on your own, which is the other benefit.
Yeah, because there's a difference between practicing and understanding. There's a difference between practicing and understanding something new and applying something you already know. Because applying something you already know isn't hard to do. So you can keep practicing and refining that thing. You won't get frustrated. There's not a learning curve. You've already learned the skill. You just now need to apply it and master it. Where it turns into that unconscious competence where you can do it without thinking. And that's where repetitive practice is important. But if it's something new, you need time for that to set in. You can't just keep hammering it day after day after day because you just get frustrated. It needs some time. So that's why another thing that when you're learning something new is the fact that you go sleep after your study or whatever, that helps it to set in. Where you wake up and now you get to try it again. And you're not trying it again while also being barked at to learn something else on top of that. So the layers can't keep coming. It has to stop, take some time to learn it, and then move on. So it's the, like you said, once a week, and then apply it in your game, in your practice, intentionally practice the thing that you've learned. That's how it turns into an actual skill that's useful.
Yeah.
You know?
And then reps are great after. Like, yeah,
of course.
Reps will never hurt you, but like if you can dial in the mechanics of everything there, that's good.
Right.